Yo, what is up? It's that time, it's that moment. It's Righteous with another video. All right, so I'm back with another video. I know you guys saw that my last video has been having some issues. I don't know if you saw my short, but I'm here to tell you that, guys, don't mess with WWE, because if you start posting videos or too long videos with WWE content on there, you're gonna have issues, and that's what's going on with my last video. So this is gonna be a mix of the two, of what's going on now, which is the new stuff that's been coming out about Brooke Hogan. And we're going to pay respects, and we're going to talk about some more things regarding WWE. So this is going to be a mainly WWE wrestling kind of video. The first thing we're going to talk about is Brooke Hogan. Let's get into that subject. Let's see what's going on with that one. Pretty interesting stuff, if you ask me. And I think she has good reasoning. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty interesting stuff. So first of all, I don't know if you guys knew this, but ever since the whole lawsuit with Gawker, Hogan's daughter has not spoken to Hogan. And the biggest issue with that is the embarrassment that she received from all of that. You know what I'm saying? Think about it, guys. Before we get into the article, think about it. She finds out that her dad was cheating on her mom. She finds out that her dad had a sex tape, which is very embarrassing for a young woman, learning that her dad has a sex tape. That's kind of weird. And then also finding out that he said some pretty racist things, and he said a few racist things, and it wasn't just one time. He's apologized to the public, but apparently he's never apologized directly to his daughter. So that's why she put herself off of the will, because of the lawsuit. So we can dig into this website article all we want, but that's the meat and potatoes of this article. That's what they're talking about. A lot of this is going back and forth on how they don't talk anymore. And I'm going to try to bring up some quotes that I think are interesting. This is coming mainly from her husband. They also have twins. They were secretly married in 2022. And she got herself taken off of the will in 2023. So here's a quote from the husband, I'm sorry. I have completely separate reasons for going no contact with each of my parents. Oh, this is Brooke, I'm sorry. She went no contact with both of her parents. She says, no contact with my mom has nothing to do with my dad, and no contact with my father has nothing to do with my mother. This decision was made based purely on how they have dealt with my entire life. Dealt with me my entire life. She also says they were extremely verbally and mentally abused and frequently turned physical. However, Brooke clarified that she claimed not pointed at either of her parents. So she's not saying that one or the other was more physical than the other. I guess they were equally abusive. Another quote says, I longed for a normal family, but it never came to fruition. I repeatedly held my hand out to help them, only to have them pull me into the darkness with them. I've set boundaries that were not respected. At this point, I can truly do no more. Okay, so I'm not gonna keep going back and forth on these quotes. It's obvious that she wasn't happy. It's very difficult for a young female of a daughter of a big celebrity like Hulk Hogan, and then for him to have a traumatic, situation like that for her. It's hard for her to build off of. It's basically, it just severed the relationship. She was taken off guard. She was caught off guard. And then now, it's like, whoever's with me is with me. If they're not, they're not. And that's how Hogan treated her. And that's how it seems to me, that he treated her like if she was a bystander. Like, yo, I ain't got to explain this to you. You know what I mean? So that's the biggest issue is, it seems like she was left out of the situation. So I think that's a problem. You know what I'm saying? I think that's an issue. The situation with the racist remarks, I didn't know that he didn't apologize to his daughter, which changes everything for me, in my opinion. It makes it harder for me to defend Hogan. I'm just coming purely off of the fact that he was a legendary wrestler. That was my first video. That is going to be a part of this video as well. But the fact that he never apologized to her, they never had a conversation, it's pretty appalling, to be honest. And I'm gonna go to another article that I think is pretty interesting. Let's see what else we got. Let's see. So this is what I thought was pretty interesting. The husband is saying that he's tried to reach out to the father for years. So it's not just Brooke that's saying, I don't want to talk to my dad. It's literally the husband saying, I'm trying to reach out to Hulk Hogan so he could speak to his daughter, and he won't talk to me. And this article is from April, because I try to pull up what just transpired, because obviously, the news came out that she was taken off the will, which was not news to them, but it was news to us. And then as I was looking up the other stuff, this popped up, and it's an article from April. So while they were alive, like while Hogan was alive, he would not talk to his daughter, or he wouldn't answer a phone call from the husband, which I think is kind of crazy. So man, this is messy. You know what I'm saying? This is pretty messy stuff. And how do you repair something like that? I mean, the man's passed away now. All he has is his legacy. We all know that, he put his family on blast when he had that whole reality TV show. And I know his son worships the ground he walks on, you know what I'm saying? So he loves his father. So that's a different subject. And then obviously his ex-wife was still emotional about their breakup and how things went. The divorce was pretty public as well. And then there was a lot of scenarios where, if I'm not mistaken, Brooke Hogan's friend was supposedly dating her mom or something like that. There was a lot of like weird things going on, and then also there's rumors of Hulk Hogan being a swinger. Um, Supposedly they were friends. They were no longer friends with Hogan because he tried to do those swinger type vibes, or maybe I got it wrong. Chat, help me out, please. Because it's a lot to stay focused on, and I usually try not to get too much into the salacious things, but it's popping up, and I want to make sure that I cover it so I could move on to Hogan's legacy, and some of the other news that's been going on as well, which I want to touch on, and I will be touching on that today in this video. So just to wrap it all up, I think as a dad, I think he really missed the boat. I think he was using his celebrity power and his popularity power to make his daughter just be like, you know what, you're right, dad, you're right, you're always right. And I think that's kind of messed up. The biggest issue with, being a dad like that, you gotta sit your kid down, bro. You gotta explain what's going on. At some point you have to. And you know what the issue is too, is that you either miss out on that opportunity, or that opportunity is there for a few years because your kid still loves you, and you get the chance to say what you got to say, and then your kid has a chance and an opportunity to say, you know what, I forgive my dad. But sometimes it takes time for those kids to do that, to forgive their parents, and the fact that she wasn't talking to her mom too, it shows that she was having a lot of mental issues with the whole relationship in itself. Like, there was no, like, she couldn't heal. She felt like every time that she spoke to them, it was just constant reminder of trauma and negativity and the old days. And I will say that I think that it's possible that she was maybe a little too young in the head to be on a TV show. So let's talk about that, chat. What do you guys think about that? How do you feel about that? Because in my opinion, I remember that show, and her being the daughter of Hulk Hogan, who's probably 6'5", 6'6", something like that. She's a taller female, 19 years old, has the Hogan chin, broad shoulders, blonde, looks like she is either, from Florida or some kind of beachy environment. She was too young. She looked like a grown woman on a TV show. She was exploited at the wrong time. She wasn't ready for all that. And you could tell that she was making logical decisions by separating herself, because those are very toxic kind of stories that we're talking about. Swinger vibes, getting caught with a sex tape, going through a lawsuit that's worth 140 million or so, north of that, talking about, N-word this and N-word that, because, they were trying to sway the people that were, a part of the court system, that were, the people that are there to help out with the case. They were trying to sway it so like that it could go against Hogan and make him look bad. So they brought up what he truly said, which was awful. You don't say things about people like that, regardless. And that is very embarrassing, you know what I'm saying? And if he didn't tell her, he didn't have a conversation with her, if he was going through too much of his own emotions, then he wasn't being a dad. And parents have to be leaders, and that's just what it is. We gotta call a spade what it is. We gotta call a spade here, folks. He wasn't present. He wasn't mentally focused on saying, you know what, I gotta make sure my family's good because yeah, this is embarrassing for me, but I gotta make sure my family's good. And that's the reason why she didn't want anything to do with that money. She said that because this is in the article as well. She said that majority of the money that he had that he was sitting on wasn't from the ring. Now, that makes sense to me because there's at least 3 decades of him wrestling. We got the little bit of the 70s, which obviously it pushed him into the 80s. Pretty sure that they were born in the 80s or maybe early 90s. But the majority of his money from the 80s was probably gone by the early 2000s. He probably was sitting on the money that he had from the 90s because he made a lot of money when he was in WCW. Chat, am I wrong? What do you think? He made a lot of money during the WCW years. The money from the 80s, he probably spent that on lawsuits and all that stuff because he had lawsuits in the early 90s too. We all know this. We're talking about Hulk Hogan here. We're not talking about some, regular Joe Schmo guy. We're talking about Hulk Hogan. The guy has made money multiple times in his career. So when we're getting to the fact that he got that lawsuit money 10 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later, he's not wrestling anymore. This man is doing interviews, he's signing autographs, he's got like businesses, brands and stuff like that. But the majority of his money came from that lawsuit. That makes sense to me. What do you think? I think so. I think that's the money that he was sitting on. So, okay, he had new brands. I also heard that he was trying to create a new league and Jake Paul was going to be a part of it or something, and it was going to be like nothing ever seen before or some shit, some crap like that. I don't know. But she's right. So does she have the right to say that? I think so. She's old enough. She has kids. She has a husband. She doesn't want nothing to do with that. That has nothing to do with her being a daughter. So let's move on. Okay. Let's move on to something else because we know the negativity that came from that lawsuit and all the things that Hogan said about N-word this and N-word that. I do not agree with that. All the stuff that I was trying to bring up when it came to his career was about wrestling. Because we saw a totally different side from him in that time, especially in the 80s, because that's when he was white hot. Pause. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? I really feel like Hogan he couldn't really like separate himself from that. He lost a lot of fans when he said the N-word this and N-word that. I do want to say though, he did apologize for it. Was it legit? I don't know. I was more torn off of Hogan stepping on people's careers when he was a wrestler. That's what I always judged him for. I'm a Bret Hart fan, so that's what I was judging him for. Bret Hart always criticized him for not allowing him to have matches with him, Hulk Hogan. So let's see what D.L. Hughley had to say.
Controversial figure. I will say this: wherever Hulk is at, either up or down, he has run his race. So nothing that we can say, if we're in the land of the living, can hurt him anymore. But they certainly can hurt his family. And I respect his family saying that this is not the time to remind people he was a racist. But now all members of his family feel that way. Like one of his daughters primarily believes that she doesn't want any money from him. She doesn't want to have anything to do with fighting for the estate. And they didn't speak. Do you know how horrible you got to be to have someone that loves you or that grew up with you not forgive you in death? So it doesn't matter what we say. It doesn't matter what the public at large says. Somebody in his family saying that because he talked about her so bad and said such inflammatory things because she was dating a black man, that so she's calling him a racist. But all of us are remembered by not only the good we did, but the bad. And what you hope is that you've done enough good that it counteracts the other. We're all just like, so when John Lennon passed, John Lennon was such a beloved figure that radio formats all across the country went silent. When Michael Jackson died, who was equally as talented, he's probably the most talented entertainer that ever lived, they didn't do the same thing. Not because his history wasn't great, not because his legacy wasn't great, it was because of the last thing that happened to him. That's what they remember. They remember the good and the bad. And it's generally the most prominent thing that happened to you. It's the last thing that happened to you. When Kobe Bryant passed and Gayle King asked that question, everybody got upset. But you are remembered for the good you do and the bad. The things that they want to remember and the things that they want to forget. And when someone in your family, your father in particular, especially with a father and daughter, has said something that you cannot forget or forgive in death, that tells you everything you need to know about the man we're discussing. So you can rest in peace to some, but not to all.
Man, that was some pretty strong words, some touching words right there. Let's take a few seconds to say RIP. I don't feel like my first video did its just due, so let's just say RIP. The man definitely sacrificed his body and his life and his mind to wrestling. He did a lot for the industry, and it wouldn't be where it's supposed to be, where it is today, I'm sorry, if it wasn't for his wrestling style and his interview style. He did a lot for the industry, and let's just say RIP. I want to say RIP to the wrestler, not exactly the person. I'm not gonna say that he was my favorite person, but let's just say RIP to the character Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea. I think they're almost one and the same. At some point they became one and the same, and that's one of the things that they can sometimes be a tragedy to people that become so popular, they become so rich, and they become almost one and the same. You know what I'm saying? But the character Hulk Hogan, we will never forget that man. So let's move on. What else do we have here to talk about, guys? I'm gonna circle back to Hulk Hogan's legacy. I want to talk about this. So I don't know if you guys saw this, but this was like a side, kind of like a side story, and I found it very interesting. I hope this website doesn't hit me with a paywall, but supposedly Vince McMahon was in whatever. Anyway, I can fix this. No worries, guys. Anyway, Vince McMahon was in an accident. So if you guys didn't know, go and check this out. What's it called? Vince McMahon was in what kind of vehicle was it? I'm not sure exactly right now, but I think it was a Bentley. Yeah, he was driving a GT fast car, and I guess he tried to run someone off the road by accident, or he was going too fast. But I'm gonna try to read the report to you. Here we go. McMahon was cited for reckless driving and following too closely after last Thursday morning crash on Merritt Parkway in Westport. State police said in a report no one was injured. He was released on a $500 bond and ordered to appear in Stamford Superior Court on August 26. Representatives for McMahon did not immediately return email messages on Wednesday. TMZ first reported the crash on Tuesday. Photos taken by one of the people involved in the crash, Barbara Doran, showed heavy damage to the front of McMahon's Bentley as it sat on a tow truck in Westport. The photos also showed rear-end damage on her View 430. The police report said McMahon was driving northbound on the Parkway, also known as Route 15, when he rear-ended the BMW and crashed into wooden guardrail. A car traveling in the southbound lanes struck debris from the crash that flew over the guardrail, and state police said there were no passengers in the car and all three drivers were wearing their seat belts. Police said the airbags in McMahon's car deployed. The police report said Duran said her airbags in her BMW didn't. Duran of New York City said she was driving in the right lane when McMahon crashed into her. She said the impact sent her car off the road. I was driving along in the right lane and suddenly, boom, I was hit from behind and catapulted forward, and you can see the skid marks where I was trying desperately to keep on the road, she said. Duran said a state trooper told her the other driver was McMahon, whom she didn't know too much about. She said she and McMahon talked after the crash. He just, expressed concern, was glad I was okay and all that, and I thanked him for his concern. McMahon stepped down about last year, sexual abuse, another lawsuit. McMahon bought what was the Federation in 1982, transformed, da da da. Okay, so interesting story. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because supposedly, and I got the wrong thing up right now. Supposedly, the lady said in another interview or something that around the same time that the news came out for Hulk Hogan passing away, Vince McMahon was doing 90 or 100 on the freeway or whatever the hell he was doing. And that's when the crash happened. No one knows that exactly. Obviously, that's speculation. I saw it somewhere on Instagram, so that could be speculation. Excuse me. But that makes sense. Vince McMahon was pretty close to Hulk Hogan, and I'm pretty sure whether Vince McMahon is running WWE or not, I'm pretty sure he's triggered by the fact that Hulk Hogan had passed away. Vince McMahon, he likes money. You know what I'm saying? He is also a human being. So Hulk Hogan was one of his friends. But that is a crazy moment right there where he's probably going to say to himself, yo, I need to capitalize off of this. And the WWE is also his baby. So it's not just about money. It's also the fact that he wants to, create that story how he wants to, and they had a tribute for Hogan on WWE and Monday Night Raw, but they've been kind of separating themselves from Hulk Hogan for a while. So I'm not trying to get too much into Vince McMahon versus WWE or Triple H or Stephanie McMahon. I'm not trying to get into that. I'm just stating the fact that Vince McMahon crashed because he's like, dang, one of my biggest money makers of all time has passed away. I find that interesting. Chat, what do you guys think? It's definitely crazy, man. I want to go back to some of the things that I was talking about when it comes to Hogan and his legacy. I want to add more. I want to add more to his legacy. I want to talk more about his legacy, I should say. So another thing that's been going on the net about Hulk Hogan is a lot of black wrestlers stating quotes, and actually wrestlers in general stating quotes and saying, we should stop, commenting on Hulk Hogan's past with his negativity and his, racist remarks. I find it interesting. I don't know if I believe all of it. I don't know if I agree with all of them, because, if one of the greatest wrestlers of all time is known as a big time racist, what does that do for their industry? You know what I'm saying? So, there, you got to put that into that, story. You got to factor that in. But here's a quote from Stevie Ray, who is Booker T's brother. Hulk Hogan was very important to me and my brother's career. He was always a good man to talk to. R.I.P. brother. Okay, so that's one quote. We have quotes from Mark Henry saying R.I.P. We also have a quote from Kevin Nash, where I posted this on my YouTube. You guys need to check that out because it's kind of like Facebook, low key. So I post things on there all the time. So here's some of his quotes. It says, Kevin Nash calls out black wrestlers for their two-faced comments after the passing of Hulk Hogan. I saw several black wrestlers when Terry was alive talk nothing but junk about him because of his comments, and I personally found it offensive. I'm pretty sure he's talking about Mark Henry. I think that's interesting because some of these people are now announcers and they're just talking heads. They're no longer in the wrestling game. They're not going to go and box or fight in the street. They're just talking. So I'm pretty sure he might have been talking about Mark Henry. And yeah, because Booker T has been talking good about Hogan. But back to the quote, it says, if you can get a pass because he's in the afterlife, then where's the line? How about his kids, man? Can you just lay off the man? Ain't nothing going to change now. These wrestlers who were very vocal against him a few years ago are now singing his praises. Yeah. So what do you think about that, chat? How do you feel about that one? This is from Kevin Nash. He has a podcast. Interesting stuff, man. Very interesting stuff. That's the quote right there. So my bad if I wasn't putting it up at the right time or what, blah, blah, blah. But I still think it's a valid quote. There's so many people coming out saying different things. You know, people are going to talk. There's so many podcasts out that are saying different things. And they're trying to go back on how they felt and remixing it. I'm pretty sure Bret Hart's going to still be the same guy. We all know what Hulk Hogan meant to wrestling. In the 80s, he made it so popular that even after he had his lawsuit in the early 90s about steroid usage or, I don't know, choking Vince McMahon or something, I don't know. You know, wrestling was still pretty popular. It wasn't as popular as the 80s, but in the early 90s, it went down a little bit, and then in the mid 90s it went back up, and then Hogan became a part of that. He was a part of the Attitude Era, and you know, he revisited WWE and then had a great third part of his career, because everybody thought that he was done. I thought he was done when he started fighting wrestling. Like Kurt Angle had a tag team title with Edge, had another championship run. You know what I'm saying? He did his thing. I'm gonna end the video with a few accolades and a few things that Hulk Hogan has done. I think it's interesting. I think it's worth talking about. So let me know what you guys think. Chat, please help me out here. 12-time world champion. He won the WWF Championship belt 6 times. Same thing with WCW. He also won the Royal Rumble twice, 1990 and 1991. Headlined 8 of the first 9 WrestleManias. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2005 and again in 2020 as part of the NWO. Longest reigning WWF champion of the 80s. Hogan's title reigns were incredibly significant, especially his first WWF championship reign, which was 1,474 days. That's what, over 3 years? Easy. Became a global icon with the Hulkamania phenomenon, especially during his initial run. He had an acting career, business ventures, and whatnot. Interesting career. And then let's get into his ring nicknames. Hollywood Hogan, Hollywood Hulk Hogan, Hollywood Boulder Hulk Hogan, Hulk Machine, Mr. America, Sterling Golden, Harry Boulder, and the Super Destroyer. Damn, beast mode. One thing that happened to Hogan that I'm pretty sure he always regretted was that he was a part of the first George Foreman grill. If you guys don't know this, George Foreman made a few grills before he made the actual George Foreman grill that became very popular. And then Hogan separated from George Foreman right before his Foreman grill, George Foreman grill, became very popular. So that's funny. You know what I'm saying? There's always been some funny things about Hulk Hogan. You know what I'm saying? And that's one of them to me, because that Foreman grill was in almost everybody's house at some point. Now you see it as like $8 or something at Walmart, $15 at Walmart. But back then everybody wanted them, and I think they were like $20, $30 a pop. They were considered healthy and all that good stuff, all that good jazz. I remember Hogan being on the ravioli cans back in the day. Chef Boyardee, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, man. The Babe Ruth of wrestling. R.I.P. to him. But I do want to ask you, have you subscribed yet? If not, do so. Like, comment, share. Guys, I am out. I got more maybe in a week or two, so like that I could try to bring up some more topics, especially when it comes to boxing. That's usually what I post up here in this channel. But I'm trying to stay committed to the channel. If you guys have anything from me, please share it. You already know. Is there more to say? Let me know in the comments, please. All right, peace out, guys. Take care. Have a nice night.
Que lo que, mi gente, what is good, my peoples? It's the one and only, your boy, Cha-Cha Charlie. And if you like this video, hit the subscribe button for more sports and entertainment videos just like this. And it's gonna be one big party, and we will be celebrating and dancing all night long. It's Cha-Cha time.